I think that's a small price to pay, not have to wait. They might prosecute him for that. How many? 2?
You mean take a short one?
2 minutes?
Anybody need water while I'm going?
I'll take one, please.
.30 and it's time to start. Appreciate everybody being here. And we will start tonight with Planning and Development Committee report from Linda Dodd.
Thank you, Mayor. I have quite a bit on the agenda for tonight. I'm going to call Robbie up, and he's going to explain everything to us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the purposes of this evening, we'll be reading into the record B, C, D, and E on your agenda items. I'll be reading them individually, but we'll have a discussion as it is one project. A and F are just part of those reports. So first on the agenda is case number A23001. Dina Vasquez requests annexations of property located at 315 Skyland Drive, Loganville, Georgia, and Gwinnett County, map parcel 5159, 013.49 acres. Second case is R23-002. Dina Vasquez has filed an application to rezone 0.49 acres located at 315 Skyland Drive, map parcel number 5159013, Gwinnett County, Georgia. The property owner is Dina Vasquez. The current zoning is O&I. The requested zoning is CH for the development of existing office with opaque fenced outdoor storage. Next case is A23-003. Dina Vasquez requests annexation of property located at 315 Skyland Drive, Loganville, Georgia, Gwinnett County. Map parcel number 5159014. This is 0.46 acres. The next case is R23-004. Dina Vasquez has filed an application to rezone 0.46 acres located on 315 Skyland Drive, map parcel number 5159014, Gwinnett County, Georgia. The property owner is Dina Vasquez. The current zoning is O&I. The requested zoning is for CH for the development of existing office with opaque fence outdoor storage. At this time, I'd like to call Mr. Ross up to speak for the applicant.
If I can approach the dais, I've got a handout for everyone. I want everyone to have.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for having me this evening. My name is Chuck Ross. I'm with the firm of Powell and Edwards in Lawrenceville. And I have the pleasure this evening of representing Ms. Dina Vasquez and her company, A3 Cable Runners. It's a business that she put together and has become very successful, literally living the American dream. and she's wants to use the property a little better than she's being able to use it, and I want to give you a little bit of history on that. First of all, the front page shows what the property looks like most recently. That's the way the office, it is an office, and that's the way it's set up. And you will see that towards the back there is a wooden gate, which leads to the area that really is at issue in this project. Now, I understand this property has some history, and I just wanted to point out a couple things that I really think are salient to understand. So this property did come before this council in May of 2020. At that time, I believe it was in a residential zoning, and it was asking for a commercial zoning. And this council did not approve that. That was not my client. That was the previous owner that did that. He then went to Gwinnett County and did successfully petition and have it rezoned to office and institutional, which is how it stands today, zoned in Gwinnett County. And A3 is lawfully operating that business at that location. And again, that zoning was all done by the previous owner. So I really implore you not to hold any issues against my clients for that reason. What they want to do at this point is they operate a company that lays cables, and they have the machines. You've probably seen them on the side of the road. They look like big machines on tracks that have pipes that get fed down the side, and they bore under the road, or they do ditches to put cabling for industrial purposes in, and that's what they do. They don't do anything on site. There is no mechanical activity in the city of Loganville unless they're out on a job site somewhere. But they have a huge area in the back that part of Gwinnett County's rezoning, Gwinnett County required the large fence that is there to be put up. They did not choose the look of that fence. My clients did not choose where it was located. Gwinnett County dictated. Actually, Gwinnett County also dictated that all of their work trucks would have to be parked in front of the building. Now, they do not allow outdoor storage of trailers or equipment or any heavy trucks. And what my clients are asking is that they be able to be annexed into the city of Loganville, and that it be rezoned to the CH district, which would provide and would allow them to be able to store equipment behind the fence. Now, a couple other things that are important. I know one of the big concerns this council had when it denied the zoning for the previous owner was the residential character of Skyland Drive. Something else to be aware of is that Gwinnett County's future land use map for that area does not list it as residential. That is listed as mixed-use non-residential. So there is absolutely, under Gwinnett's future use plan, a possibility down the road that something more intense than what's currently there could be located there if this council does not choose to annex in my client's property. Most importantly, again, there'd be no changes to the operations with the exception of my clients being able to store their trucks and equipment in the back. Now, if we go to the third page, I believe you all have probably seen this. This is the survey and the site plan, but it allows you to see where the proposed fence, or where, not proposed, but where the privacy fence is. And it actually is over onto a second tract that is abuts Highway 78. And that's important because the back of the property abuts the Jonah Crossing commercial property. So the actual storage area is being placed as far away from the adjacent, it shows it as Swansea, but I understand that property has now been sold, or is at least under contract, that's next door right now. But it is placed as far away as possible. Turning to the next page, it actually gives you a view from standing right behind that gate that you saw in the first picture, looking towards 78. That is what you would see. And turning to the next page, you can see it goes on down. Now, what's important about this picture is if you look, you can see there are at least 2 pickup trucks in there, and you can see how they basically are at roof level, maybe an inch or 2 to be particular above, but they are very close at the top of that privacy fence. And that is the bulk of what is going to be there, are going to be their trucks. Now, There are a few trailers, and what they carry on the trailers are a couple of those drilling machines, and there's some tanks, you see, with the big water tanks, or a big hose reel, and I think there may be, yes, those hose reels, you can see those orange reels in the page before there. Those are the reels that I'm talking about that have pipe. But that's essentially all that's going to be stored back there. On the next page is an overhead that kind of just gives you a good view of where my client's property fits in. The driveway is approximately, I think, about 180 feet off of 78. I think that's probably maybe a low number, but it gives you an approximate idea of where it is located. But I think the next page is more important, and that is the zoning view, the zoning map. And if you look, you'll see in my client's property is a blue square with a number 1 on it in the upper left-hand kind of quadrant, and you can see that all of the all the Loganville properties that surround it are CH. That's the Judah Crossing, the East Gwinnett Business Park across the street, all along Athens Highway, and then, of course, back on the other side. The portion on Skyland Drive there is all Gwinnett County. It is not City of Lawrence or City of Loganville. So again, I think it's important that all of the adjacent Loganville property is all CH zoned. So this would allow for more consistency. A couple other things I want to point out. I mentioned at the Planning Commission, I know some of you watched the video online of that, and I stated that my client wants to be a good neighbor, and they truly want to be good neighbors. They bought this property unaware of the issues that were going to follow them, and they've tried to make the best of it. There were several people that came and spoke at the Planning Commission, and one of the biggest complaints was that they did not like to see trucks coming down Skyland Drive, and I don't disagree with that one bit. Those trucks don't have any business going up and down Skyland Drive. And in fact, when that happened, my client, the next morning after the first Planning Commission meeting, had an all-hands-on-deck meeting and told them that they were not to travel on Skyland other than to get to 78. But all their traffic comes in and out of 78 at this point. In fact, she put up a camera and she said that she's only had one violation, and that was a gentleman that was on vacation when they had the meeting. But to the best of her knowledge, we may be told otherwise, but to the best of her knowledge, everyone has been abiding by that. Also, there were some complaints that there had been parking on Skyland Drive by the trucks and trailers. They have been forbidden by the company to park along there. So really what that gets us to then is what would be the impact. And as I noticed in the letter that I left with you all, your planning department did a very good, very thorough investigation and noted that as this is an ongoing business, that really it fits all the elements for annexation. The zoning is appropriate compared to what everything else is there. But what increases are you going to see? What they're doing now, people still come and they have meetings there. Their trucks would be coming in and out. The only when I say trucks, they're pickup trucks, not the pickup trucks with the trailers. The trailers that we're talking about would not be coming all hours of the day. This is not something that's going to be interfering all through the day. They go out to the job site in the morning. They go off wherever they have to go do their jobs. They stay there all day, and at nighttime they bring them back and they keep them locked up for safekeeping there, and so that they can all come in the morning and then leave again the next day. There's no operations in the middle of the night. There's no drilling. There's no mechanical work. None of that goes on. It simply is bringing their trailers in at night and putting them there. It is not a huge operation, successful operation, but it's not something, especially with them staying off of Skyland Drive, that is going to be disruptive to any infrastructure or be a serious inconvenience. And most importantly, this gives you all the opportunity to control that corner that is already connected to the city. It's already CH behind it. And now you all can condition that property. You can make that property for all times the way that Loganville wants their gateway to continue to look, and to design that. And if people are not happy with the way that it's set up, you can add conditions to take those into consideration. And my clients are certainly open to considering those conditions. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
Yes, I do have a few. What time in the morning and at night about do they come in and out of the property?
My understanding is it's early in the morning, so I believe probably from 6 probably to 7-ish in the morning is going to be in the morning. And I think probably 7-ish in the evening is probably a safe bet. I don't see Ms. Vasquez here yet, but that is my understanding, is it's an early morning departure and an after 5 o'clock in the evening return.
All right.
And again, I may be incorrect, and I'm sure I'll be corrected if any of the neighbors have a difference with that.
And I know y'all have the map here. Exactly how much footage does it have that touches 78?
Councilman, I'm not sure of the exact, there is obviously some right-of-way in there, but there is a corner of the property that does touch 78. As you may know, we've reached out, but unfortunately not been able to, at least at this point, reach an agreement with the owners of Judah Crossing for an easement. We are still eager to do that. At this time, they've not indicated that they are agreeable to that, but we would, obviously like to keep that open and to be able to access that.
So Judah Crossing owns everything but maybe a little corner that touches 78 right there in front.
That's my understanding.
And no headway with Judah Crossing.
Quite frankly, Councilman, the emails I had with them, I received an email from the doctor that is the main physician there, and he seemed very positive in his response to me, and then passed it to their board of directors. And the response from the board of directors said that they were considering it. At this time, my request was denied, but they would contact me with future steps, if any. So that's the response that I got. Again, I'm trying to speak in full candor to this council,
Yeah, I
and
got it.
let
Appreciate
them know. I certainly am happy to make another run at them. Again, it was not a clear statement as I would have expected.
I do have a question for Danny and maybe Paul. I know if the council decides to deny, they can't come back for at least a year. Now, say they do get some headway with Judah Crossing in a month or 3 months. Could we put a condition that they could come back to us if they get that put in?
It's gonna be 6.
Or do they have to wait the full year?
As to the issue of just a connectivity to Judah Crossing and easement to get through their ingress egress, if you wanted to make it a condition, let me give you some options. If you want to make it a condition, you're going to proceed forward tonight and approve it, you certainly could make a condition that they need to make all reasonable efforts and attempts to get a condition, to get an easement, excuse me. And then if they were unable to, then it's just simply a condition they can't fulfill. And staff could monitor that to see, if you were to deny the annexation request, then yes, generally, you've got a year, and I don't think there'd be anything that would be, there's nothing that I can think of in ZPL or in your zoning ordinance that would be appropriate for the application to come back to you before that 1 year anniversary.
That answers my question. And then Danny, the rest of the street is owned by Gwinnett County, correct? So what would be the best way for us to enforce, say, we just have to send Josh out there to do it? I mean, because it would be on their sewer and their water,
So the
correct?
street would still remain Gwinnett County's. We can only
Okay.
enforce what's annexed into the city. That property is the only thing we could enforce if you choose to enforce Thursday and annex this property in.
But the sewer and the water would still be Gwinnett County's,
That's correct.
so we wouldn't, okay.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay.
So it's zoned O and I now,
Yes,
and that's in
ma'am.
Gwinnett.
Yes, ma'am.
And she's in violation of that because she has the equipment. I actually went by there last night, Sunday night, figured all the trucks would be there. There's actually, this picture is very deceptive because there was over 20 nice size, like F-350s or whatever parked in there with all these trailers. That whole lot was full, and those will be the trucks that are going in and out constantly. And I also believe that at the planning and zoning, got a lot of input from the community. They said those trucks are coming in as late as 8 o'clock at night.
And that may be, absolutely. I have no reason to disagree with you that some of them may
Right.
come in that late. Now, when I was last in contact, my understanding was there was nothing back there, so.
Okay, well, I went by there last
I
night.
understand, so.
Looked over the fence, there's about at least 20 trucks back there with trailers and everything, a lot of
Understand.
equipment. But they're in violation of O&I because of the equipment storage, correct? Have they
yes,
received
ma'am.
any violation notices from
They
Gwinnett
did
County?
receive a notice of violation. That's how I got involved initially. They received a notice of violation, but.
So they obviously haven't corrected that because they're still storing vehicles there.
Well, they had corrected, so I'm not sure what's happened, because they had cleaned it all out and corrected it, because we did not receive the citation, because they did. They moved the dumpster that was in the front was a problem. They had that removed out of the way. There was a tent that was up. They had that moved out of the way. And my understanding was all the trucks had been moved out of the way. So I'm not sure what has happened, and and
So
again,
what-
I'm not doubting you at all, but just,
Okay.
I wanted you to know that that was my
Right.
understanding, and I believed it was supported because Gwinnett County zoning has not moved forward with the violation.
So why are they not pursuing what zoning they need in Gwinnett County? Why are they coming here to ask us to annex them in and everything? I mean, they're already worked with Gwinnett County in the past, they already have their O&I, they already have an established relationship with Gwinnett. Why
Sure.
would they not pursue?
Because there's not really an appropriate zoning that in Gwinnett, that under Gwinnett's future land use plan, there's not really an appropriate outdoor storage zoning district that would work. Your CH does.
Okay. What year was her business established?
I'm not sure when she started A3.
Okay, so I mean, it was before she
Oh,
purchased the
yes,
property?
yes, ma'am.
And she was aware at the time when she purchased the property that she would not be able to store her equipment there?
I don't believe she was. That is not my understanding.
So she didn't do her due diligence? Okay. And so now we've got a piece of property that's not suiting her needs, and she's wanting us to correct that for her, correct?
Yes, ma'am, you are correct. There are benefits, though I would add there are significant benefits to the city of Loganville
Right.
by doing it as well, though.
But at the end
yes,
of the
At
day-
the root of it, yes, ma'am. I don't
Yeah,
disagree
but at the end of
with
the day, it's a residential street. She's just happens to be right on the corner. But all these people that got up and spoke about the trucks coming in and out, going over the speed bumps, just that it wasn't as it was presented in the beginning. We have a lot of people in the city of Loganville that have approached me that they would also like to be able to have on-site storage, but their zoning doesn't allow for it. And I said, well, you can't change your zoning simply as a matter of your storage. Where was she storing her equipment previous to moving it all here against her zoning regulations?
I think they had a previous location that they've moved to, so they moved from.
Okay, so if we deny her tonight, will she continue to violate the O&I zoning for Gwinnett County, or will she actually move those vehicles off property?
They, again, my understanding was they had been moved off the property, so she's not gonna violate the
Again, though,
policies.
I'm not going to argue with you, they were
No,
there
ma'am.
last night.
No, and again, I believe you 1,000,000%, but I'm just, but no, ma'am, they are not going to violate the zoning. There'll just be an empty space back there, but the business will
Right.
continue to operate.
And again, if we were to vote to give this the CH zoning, I'm sure that her business is lovely, and we all like small business and like to see somebody succeed. The problem comes in, Mr. Davis, the previous owner, he wasn't there very long. If she's growing at the rate that it seems that she is with her company, and she's growing, she'll outgrow it. And when she sells it, now we have a piece of property that we have zone CH, that we can't control what goes there.
I would
And so
just,
that's what I'm saying, we have to think forward, and it seems that she has a very good solution now. She is O&I, she can have her office there. It just seems that her issue is that she needs off-site storage for her vehicles.
and we would just indicate that I believe that there are some conditions that you could put on, for one, you talked about the hours. This council absolutely has the ability to condition those properties and say, trucks can't come in after 7 o'clock or after 6:30, and you can enforce that, and that's a condition that this council
Well, yeah, because
can-
we'd have to have somebody sitting there constantly monitoring it.
I'm confident that you would have people letting you all know if that was an issue.
Listen, I'm the councilman that would be sitting there myself, because that's just the way I am. But I
understand.
don't want to go down that road.
I
So,
understand.
but those were my questions. Did
Yes,
she
ma'am.
know before, how long was her business established? And she knew that she was going to need off-site storage, and that she just failed to do her due diligence, and now she has a piece of property that it doesn't
That's-
suit her needs.
That's certainly a way to couch it. My
Okay.
understanding is she was unaware when she purchased it that she wasn't going to
Okay.
be able to, it
All right.
wasn't going to suit her
All right.
needs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, for those in the audience, just so you be aware, this decision will not be made tonight. This is a work session, so anybody can ask questions as they would like, and the voting will not take place till Thursday night, just so you're aware. Paul, the only question I had, and I was going to ask about the zoning as well when I read it over the weekend, but does she still own the secondary storage facility?
She does not own the secondary storage.
Is she
facility.
renting
I
one?
think she's having to rent, is my
Okay.
understanding, because she told me it's very, again, that's why I was very surprised to hear the councilwoman indicate that the items are being stored there overnight, because she had told me it was extremely expensive for what they're having to store off-site right now, so.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I have a
Yes,
couple
go ahead.
questions.
Okay, Ann?
Robbie, which is a less lax zoning for us, CH or O&I? O&I. So it behooves us, we get a tighter control on CH than we would, on O&I than CH, okay. Paul, we can't do any sort of conditions about, or could we, about trucks not being able to go down Skyland, requiring them to go on 78? Could we?
You certainly can add it as a condition. Obviously, you have an enforcement issue.
Enforceability, 'cause
You
it's
don't-
Gwinnett, yeah.
You don't own the street, you don't control the
Right.
street, so you're just going to have an enforcement issue. I do
Okay.
think that you have a lot of leeway in placing conditions that are reasonably related to the zoning action itself.
Right.
So I would have no problem with you making that condition, but there's just a practical enforcement issue that you'll have. Meaning, it could be a condition, it could be a condition that's monitored by staff, but how they can actually enforce that when it's not your street is just going to create
Yeah,
some
that's what I figured. Okay.
practical realities.
Do you have photographs from yesterday? Okay.
Trust me, I go back.
Thank you, Senator.
So I got a few questions, and first of all, I'll start off with what Melanie brought up. Because I went by there, been by a couple times. One was a Friday after a few weeks ago. It was about 5:45 or so, and I could, from what I could see, I couldn't see a lot of vehicles back there. I could just see the tops of them a little bit. I will say that just driving around and seeing what they've done with the upgrades to the front of the building and all look really good. I can say that, this business has done something pretty good. But going back to what Melanie said, she said she saw a bunch of trucks, F-150s parked back there. Can you explain the difference in vehicle parked versus the storage? I mean, what's the component? Is if they park a vehicle overnight, does that count, or is it the trailer that we're looking for with the piece of equipment?
It's both. It's
It's both.
both. Interestingly enough, under Gwinnett County's conditions, they've said all work trucks can park in the front, which is strange because they specifically say no outdoor storage, which is the standard. So theoretically, they could park all of their pickup trucks in the front under Gwinnett County zoning, and it would not be an issue. They don't really want to do that from a security point of view, also from aesthetics. I can't imagine that anyone would rather have all the trucks parked in the front than parked behind that fence in the back. But they would intend to park the trucks and the trailers, and they have several trailers. There is, again, one that's going to have the reel on the back, one or two that are going to have the drills on the back. So there's going to be some industrial equipment, but again, it is behind that fence, so you're only going to see some of the top of it. And again, we can place those. If you look on the picture, there is a side there that's shielded to a good degree by the house or by the office. And so certainly you could even condition that the trailers have to be tucked on that side that's between the office and 78 to give it even more of a shield.
The section on there behind the garage where it shows the chain link fence, is that something they're planning to change, or?
That, I believe the chain link fence, I believe, is on Judah Crossings.
So is their
That's my
privacy
understanding.
fence go the full perimeter of the property?
It does not. It does not. The privacy, it's where you see in the red there is where the privacy fence is located. I think the intent of the county was to enclose the view shed from 78, and they were less concerned with any view shed from Judah Crossing back. I don't know that for sure. I was not involved in that action, but that's kind of the thought that I had there. I believe there may be a small fence. No, it's just chain link in the back. It's,
Just out of question too, are any of these, any of this that they're storing there, is any of it hazardous materials?
no, sir. No, sir. And they would also, I mean, if a higher fence is needed, I mean, I'm certainly, they'd be more than happy to have a bigger fence around there as well, and to add another 2 feet or whatever needs to be done.
I don't think the issue's the fence. I think it's being in
Yes,
a
ma'am.
neighborhood, because we're talking about all the children, and there's a street that runs right in behind here and houses back here, and they were just talking. And like I said, I did notice that some people said that the trucks are coming in as late as 8 o'clock at night. Small children are getting ready for bed and winding down, and they're hearing all this noise coming out from here and there. And Bill, they had to be at least F-350s. They have the lights on the top of the cab. They're big trucks, bigger than an F-150. They're bigger trucks. And they were all backed up against, and I would say there's probably 20 of them. And just for reference in this picture, this gate is not there. If it is there, it's been opened all the way. It was I could have driven back there if I wanted to. So that's not even there. It's not blocked from the road to keep people. So if they're using security as one of their issues, they no longer have this gate right here in operation.
That's interesting.
Right, but the only difference in a 250 and a 350 and a 450, no, it's the heights are the same as the transmission and the hauling. So it's not like it's a giant
It
box.
could be a dually.
Dually wouldn't change the height.
No, but it's going to make more noise going in and out over those speed humps. And if they're diesels, they're a lot louder, especially in the winter when my neighbor has a diesel and he cranks it up and lets it run.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Very good, Paul. We come to you.
All right, then we will vote on this on Thursday night.
Ms. Dodd,
Oh,
we just need to have
sorry.
public hearing, that's all, I was just going to make sure we got there.
Yeah.
So now that the applicants had an opportunity to make their presentation, then the appropriate structure under your zoning ordinance would be for anyone else wanting to speak in favor of the matter to come forward and provide comment. And then once ample opportunity has been given for those in favor, then opportunity for those against to come forward. And unless the chair chooses otherwise, you're limited to 10 minutes in total for those two categories, in favor or against. But the chair has complete leeway under your zoning ordinance to allow for more time, should you so choose.
So do we have anyone from the audience that wants to speak for this?
Those wishing to speak in favor of this, please come forward or stand up or raise a hand or something. Okay, seeing none, Linda.
Well, then do we have anyone that wants to come and speak against this and keep it to just, not the same people say the same thing over and over, so that way we kind of have it condensed down so more people want to speak. If you do, you need to come forward to the microphone and state your name and your address. Go to the microphone.
I'm Donna Hain, and this is my husband, Michael, and we live on Garden Walk Way in Loganville. And I appreciate you taking the time to ride by there, because if you see what we see every day ruining the value of our property, never mind the kids that are getting off of that school bus. And 7 o'clock in the morning is high school kids leaving. So that's something to take in. If you don't mind, I'd like to show you the picture.
Cal, can you put that on the big screen? Probably not on the phone.
No, we cannot.
I was just hoping.
like you saw of
That's
what's really
that's
going
at
on.
what time? 8:05, okay.
Yeah, it does happen. Okay, that's just a little bit. When, she'll tell you, there's plenty and plenty of trucks. Okay, they're not the great neighbors. You mentioned the house being nice. That was the people before that did that. They're the ones that fixed up the house. These people put up the fence. That's all I want.
Just a history since they've been there. The improvements to the house and to the front of the house were made by, I believe his name was Mr. Davis. He was an architect or an engineer. He made all the office arrangements for the residents, and it looked fine, and there's nothing wrong with it. As far as parking their trucks, A3 runner, cable runners trucks in front, there is a small pad. There's space for 3 cars at the most. Since they have moved in, initially there was a large hole at the very front of the fence, and they simply came in and out that way. When something was said, they closed it up and started going around the property, around the house, and going down Skyland Drive every morning when they left. So they violate, since they moved in, they violated every step of the way until somebody said something. Regardless of the trucks not being there in the photographs, they're there every night. They're there every night. Lots of them,
Really
20,
not bad.
25 that I counted over the fence every night. As far as the street, Skyland Drive is a well-established residential street, always has been. There's no vacant properties in there. There's no vacant houses. They're all fully, it's a residential street. It's a neighborhood.
And if you look at one bus stop of the elementary school kids getting off the bus stop on that first street, there's at least 8 elementary age.
We would just like for it
And
to
if
remain
you-
a residential street. That's why we're
You
opposed to
put it
this.
commercial, you have no say-so what they do after the fact. None.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
An easy question for you, though, and you may have to step back. Is there anything you've heard tonight or anything you can think of that could be done that would satisfy you that this should move forward?
Well, I just don't think that they're open to that. They've violated the, well,
I don't see it. I don't see them having a commercial property right there. I think it'll ruin the value of our homes.
as far as the
It hasn't
office
already.
space, have the office there, conduct your business there, but the storage and the outdoor storage and
would-
all the trucks and all that equipment, and plus it's a gravel lot that they're parking all that
The
stuff on.
office.
Saw that.
So all the mud just comes out on the street when
Yeah.
they're heavy.
Now, Paul, the question in Gwinnett County was they could park their trucks there, but not the trailers. Is that right, or did I get it wrong?
It had to be on concrete.
I'm going to let you answer, Chuck, because I don't know the answer to that.
I was trying to be careful because I didn't want to intrude into but I actually have a copy that I can read in exactly that particular condition, Mr. Mayor. You go to the microphone.
Yeah, you gotta go to the mic.
I'm not trying to take you outside.
Y'all get together.
So,
Thank y'all.
okay. So this is under condition 1C, and it says to restrict the use of the property as follows. C, outdoor storage of equipment and materials, including business trucks, trailers, and vans is prohibited. Work vehicles shall be parked in the front yard on paved designated spaces. So it's a strange connotation between business vehicles and work vehicles, so. But that's the exact wording of the resolution or the zoning ordinance by Gwinnett County.
Have they given you any citations about the trucks being there, or just the trailers?
So right now, what they received, they actually have not received a citation. They received a notice of violation, and those were as to the dumpster that was out front. It was to outdoor storage in general, is what I believe it said. But it was our understanding that indeed it was the trucks and the trailers in the back. And again, I'm just want to be fully open with you all about everything.
Thank you for being honest. Thank you.
Okay, do we have anyone else?
Good evening. Ted Johns from Lee Bird Road. Just have a question. If you zone this CNH, what's to keep them from cutting down all those trees around through there and making more parking and parking more vehicles in there?
Now, you live on Lee Bird Road,
Yes,
and you're talking about the property off of 78.
yes.
Okay.
Because, I mean, the way this has gone is, you know, we're trying to keep this residential areas residential.
I understand.
And, yeah, I'm just not for going for anything like that.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Lois Dubose, and I live on Garden Walkway. I have several concerns. One is a council member, I wasn't able to attend the last meeting, but the one before, a council member mentioned to them, stated to them that they had not followed the law and that they needed to obey that. Obviously, they haven't. That is concern. If they get what they want, how are we going to have restrictions on what else they do? Where is it going to go from here? It would have to be in writing with signature and so that there's some recourse. The other thing that concerned me, I went online and looked after the meeting that I attended, and it showed 2 businesses under Dina Vasquez. One was a tree service business as well as a cable business. That has not been mentioned. And so my concern is what is this going to take us through going forward? We value our property, we value our homes, we have a nice, quiet neighborhood, and we don't desire for that to be destroyed. And once it gets started, it can be a domino effect. And so I ask you to consider the neighbors. Would you want this in your neighborhood, in your backyard? Would you want your children or your grandchildren with that? Would you want to have people, they'll say, oh, we're going to be good neighbors, we're going to do whatever to be good neighbors, and then they go ahead and do as they please? Would you want that? We ask that you consider our concerns because we live there 24/7. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. Okay, anyone else? Okay, Linda, with
Mr.
that
Mayor,
said,
I have one more question,
Okay, good.
actually,
okay.
for Mr. Ross. Is the applicant planning on parking their tree service trucks here?
I'm not aware of it. I do know there is a chipper that's been in those photographs. There's been one chipper, but to my understanding, they're not actively operating anything but the cable running business. So now, I absolutely, and I know that Mr. Rosenthal can speak to this. Those can be conditioned. You can limit what type of vehicles can be on the property. To answer the previous question, you can put a condition on the property that only the cable company related vehicles can be on the property. As far as the times, you can limit the times that they're allowed to come in and out, and you can absolutely limit that they can't cut trees. All of those are easily conditioned on the property and give you control over that. Control that right now doesn't exist under Gwinnett County.
Right.
Are you asking, is that true?
Is that, well, I mean, I know the time, I mean, it's all about enforcement, but
Sure,
can
absolutely.
we limit
Yes.
just trucks and trailers and no heavy tree equipment?
Yes, so a couple of things that you can do. Number one is, I would have to look at your occupational tax ordinance, and maybe Robbie can speak to this, but you certainly can limit it to no more than one occupational tax certificate for this location. And you certainly do have a fire marshal, and you have a code enforcement officer who is enforcing the obtaining of business licenses or occupational tax certificates. So you can do that. You certainly could condition it on no tree businesses, no tree services located on the property, which would prevent chippers and debris trucks or logging trucks. It's my understanding that this fence already exists, and so obviously there's some sort of vegetative buffer on the what I'll call the outside of the
Right.
fence. You certainly can, an example would be you can condition that there be no removal of trees, understory trees, brush, et cetera, outside of the fenced area to leave what you call the sort of the original canopy or the original vegetative buffer to remain. You could condition, I heard there's a question about the chain link fence. You could condition that the entirety of the rear of the property be enclosed by a 6-foot wooden fence. You have a whole lot of flexibility in the conditions that you place when they tie back to and relate to the intended use. You could condition in and out hours if you wanted to. No trucks out sooner than 7, no trucks in later than 7, et cetera, et cetera. You have that flexibility should you so choose to annex and then rezone to CH.
But to take it one step further, we will be the ones that have to police it.
That is correct.
Absolutely,
As
yeah,
it
we
sits here now, you don't have any enforcement authority over the control of what happens there. So going to Ms. Long's position, hey, I saw trucks out there and they weren't supposed to be there and all that, that is, whether it's occurring or not, the reality of it is that is a city, that is Gwinnett County enforcement issue that y'all don't have any control over. If it is within the 4 corners of your city limits and you do rezone it with certain conditions, then your code enforcement officers then have a stick, so to speak,
Right.
with which to address enforcement issues of 7 to 7 or whatever you chose, and no chipper trucks or no more than, it could be no more than 15 trucks, no more than 10 trailers. You can get as unique and creative as you want to, with our advice being, make sure that it's a reasonably and rationally related condition that relates to the intended use and the intended potential negative consequence that you're attempting to ameliorate for the local residents.
I guess from my perspective, I'm one of the few I know that voted for this when it came up the first time, and I'm a small business owner, so I'm pro-business. But if, taking what my fellow councilwoman has said, that there are trucks there and that they have a tree company, I want to make sure that we're not end running the real purpose behind this request for something else.
Yes, ma'am.
It bothers me that there might be that out there, and I don't like the way it makes me feel.
I'm more than happy if the council wants to table this matter to get more information. I can get that information, but, again, I literally have heard nothing other than seeing the one chipper. I think it's actually in the picture I gave you. There's the chipper's in the photograph.
Right.
But in none of the paperwork that I've been involved with has the issue of a tree company
Right.
come up. I mean, I represent lots, still have lots of different businesses, so I had no thought that there was any issue, but I've heard nothing about everything, her letterhead, everything I've done with her, everything's been on A3 letterhead, everything's had an A3 email address, everything has been A3 cable runners. There has not been any mention of any timber, wood, chipping, any kind of business.
And if we, from an occupational certificate, if we only issued one, like if we made it where it was only one for this location, but we rezoned it to CH, they could still park whatever they wanted there, right?
Not if you condition what's parked there as being only related to the operation of the boring company or the pipeline business, basically. I mean,
Okay.
the struggle you have, again, same thing we said before.
It's still enforcement's the trouble.
It all gets down
Absolutely.
to
Yeah, no, I get it.
the nitty-gritty of the enforcement.
I'm just a little,
And we also, we can, and again, you can rely on your city attorney, but we can agree to conditions that maybe you couldn't just ask us to do, or make us do, but if we agree to them, they do become enforceable conditions. So, there are things that we're happy to agree to, if that makes it happen, so we do that.
so I have another request for Thursday. You'll be here Thursday night, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to leave here and I'm going to drive there, and I'm going to see if the trucks are there. And if they are, I'd like to know why.
And I will, I can assure this council that, and again, Ms. Vasquez, Ms. Vasquez has not arrived.
Somebody just called her and told her to.
Well, or really,
Well, I mean,
since she saw them last night,
Right.
why were they there? That's just as fine. I don't have to drive there, find out why they were there
Right.
last
Well,
night.
and I'm not gonna, pictures don't lie. So
Yeah, you can't explain it, I get it,
no,
but I wanna know
But I'm
why.
gonna call, my call is going to be to explain.
Yeah, what happened.
That you all are wanting to know the answer to that, and I think you all are entitled to that, and we certainly will be prepared to report back with that on Thursday.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, ma'am?
In light of the fact, if this were approved, how can we be sure that it would be enforced? And time again, things happen, and then people go on and do as they say. They'll promise that they'll do, but they haven't done what they said they promised now. And so, and just because trucks may not be there tonight doesn't mean they weren't there, you know, because, so, you know, again, I ask you to consider the residents and our homes and our future.
Well, this is why I'm having a big problem. They're zoned O&I, and they've disregarded completely Gwinnett County, and they're coming to the city of Loganville, and it makes me wonder, do they think we're going to be more lax? I mean, we only have one code enforcement officer. I mean, it just, if they can't adhere to the law where they
Now, see,
are, I
and
just have a
don't know
hard
about
time wanting to
anybody
deal with
else,
them.
But I don't know, yes, I know when it was sold that it was supposed to be an office. I never even knew when it changed hands. There was no for sale sign up there. So it makes me sort of question how this deal all went across, but that's not what I'm here for tonight. But still, I'm concerned. I have a home that's there, and we have residents that have children, and we would like to keep our neighborhood a quiet neighborhood that's residential without having to worry about things being enforced and worrying about whether somebody's going to obey the law.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. I'll let you come back because you was the last one to speak, so. Because you were the last one to speak, I'll let you finish your comments.
I'm so sorry, I just have one more question. It's for you. So I know that we always have to worry about why we deny or approve zoning, specifically denying a rezoning request or an annexing request for legality. You know, we have to, it fits the future use plan, et cetera, so we can't deny on that reason. Can we use the fact that an applicant disregards current stipulations in their zoning as a reason to deny for us?
So now you're not going to like this answer. Not because
Try me anyway.
of the content, but when you are, so Mr. Ross has, as you know, as all good zoning lawyers do, provided you with a constitutional protections letter. And so the ultimate question, what you're asking me, I think gets truly into the purview of the attorney-client privileged communications as to potential or threatened litigation. Not that there's threatening litigation, but one must assume that there is. So to ultimately answer your question, the appropriate step would then to go into executive session to receive that attorney-client information or advice. I don't feel comfortable answering that for you in an open session because I'm providing you with potential legal advice that relates to potential litigation. So you have that right.
I'm okay with waiting to hear that. You know, I'm okay with us discussing amongst ourselves before we take that step. If you guys are, I don't necessarily. Okay. Thank you.
Are you saying we're going to take more information on Thursday night?
No, I mean, I think we have to kind of take the temperature of us first
Okay.
before we take that step. Do you guys agree with that? Is that okay? Okay.
Oh, I don't disagree. I do worry sometimes because the enforcement procedures we have are not very fast at times. We have to issue a citation, give them a certain amount of time to correct the situation. If we go back and find the situation still exists, then we can give them a ticket. But then we don't talk to them anymore. It gets set on the judge's docket, and it goes in front of a judge. Just so you know that, it's just the way it is. Okay? You ready to move on?
So we will bring this before council for a vote on Thursday night.
And just technically,
Okay.
sorry, I know I'm new to this game, but I just want to make sure that with all this discussion, we're closing the public hearing as to this matter.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Dodd.
You need a motion?
You do not need a motion.
Okay.
Just want to make sure that we're closing the public hearing.
Okay.
All right, Robbie, you're up for the next part.
All right, the next case for your consideration is R 23-005, Seven Multi-Site Solutions has filed an application to rezone .71 acres located at 168 Lee Bird Road, map parcel LG 110061, Walton County, Georgia. Property owner is GSA RE Highway 78 Loganville. The current zoning is R16. The requested zoning is CH for the development of the parcel to become a part of a larger commercial development fronting US 78. At this time, I'll ask for Amy Pierce to come and give you guys a presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Amy Pierce. I am with Seven Multi-Site Solutions, and I'm representing Made to Order Holdings, who is going to be developing this corner of US 78 and Lee Bird Road. And the first part of our project is to rezone the parcel that is now R16. Next slide, please. The current zoning, there's the little triangle at the top. Our client is developing a total of 5 parcels. There are 4 that, actually 2 of them, that abut US 78. And then there's a small strip and then a corner that's on Old Zion Cemetery Road and Lee Bird Road. And then the parcel that we're speaking about tonight, that's zoned R16, is the little triangle piece that sits on top of those. And we are asking to rezone that CH Highway Commercial to be able to use that as a driveway for the development. Next slide, please. Thank you. Here is our conceptual site plan, and as you can see, we're looking to build the Whataburger on the furthest west parcel of this corner property. And would like to use the parcel that's being rezoned as a driveway, also to accommodate a 30-foot wide landscape buffer to buffer it from the existing and remaining residential properties, and also for detention in that area. We had met with the city a couple of times already with city staff, and they had discussed the desire to move the driveway as far north away from that intersection of US 78 and Lee Bird Road to help alleviate some of the traffic backups. And so our plan was to use part of this parcel for a driveway into the site and out of the site to help with the traffic situation at that intersection. And in order to do that, it requires the rezoning. And so we're looking at the green is the landscape buffer that's proposed, and then the drive, and then the other part of that parcel is planned to be used for detention of stormwater, to keep all the stormwater on the site and filter it on site before it leaves. Next slide, please. And we had discussed a few different options for the landscape buffer. Obviously, there's some big, beautiful trees in that area already, and we would like to keep those trees in place, as many as possible, because it doesn't make sense to tear them down and then plant small trees around it. So we've looked at a few buffer options. We could do a buffer with a fence or a wall in between, but that might be a little difficult with the existing trees because we won't have a straight line for a fence. There's also an option for a buffer with a berm, which would be building up the dirt essentially into a berm 4 feet high, maybe higher, and then planting on top of, and then in front of that with more plantings. And then another option is a buffer without a fence or a wall, and that's just gonna be the trees arranged differently so that it is providing a screen, a visual screen, a sound screen, just so that the neighbors don't have to look at restaurants and other items that might be there. We're trying to maintain their nice backyards, and we respect the trees that are there, want to keep them, but also want to provide a nice park-like feel. Next slide, please. So some of the pluses or the benefits to the city of rezoning that small parcel to allow redevelopment of the corner is, first of all, tax dollars. It'll be nice to get some tax revenue off of those properties on the corner. It will also bring improvements to the infrastructure on that corner. We've been talking with city staff about the realignment, redevelopment of Old Zion Cemetery Road to help get traffic around that intersection so not everyone's jammed up at the light. We'll also be adding sidewalks along Lee Bird Road, Old Zion Cemetery Road, and US 78. So that'll provide some connectivity for not only vehicles, but we also will allow pedestrians and bicyclists to get from one place to the other easier in that area. And then some new landscaping and open space that's going to be involved with this. There's going to be some planned outdoor dining areas. And the Whataburger itself is a 24/7 operation, so that allows some gathering opportunities for friends and families around the clock. After football games on Friday nights, or whenever you just need to go get a burger. And it's also, Whataburger's a great neighbor. They do value community. They're involved in the communities where they operate. And I think they'll bring great presence to that corner of Loganville. Next slide. And this is just a landing slide for discussion purposes and questions. And that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. Looking at well, since you're on the landing slide, it looks like this is probably a 3-phase project with Whataburger being the first.
Yes.
Will you go ahead prior to the Whataburger construction? Will you go ahead and complete the Old Zion Cemetery Road realignment prior to that? Or does that come in one of the later phases of this project?
The plan is to do that all in the first phase, because we will need to relocate some utilities, and that will require some work in the strip along Old Zion Cemetery Road.
Okay.
So we're working with city staff to kind of figure out the best ways to move traffic away from the intersection and to keep traffic moving through. Like, one of the items is to change Old Zion Cemetery Road to basically a one-way street for most of it, so that you don't have traffic coming in all directions on that little corner. And we are still working out details on the driveway on US 78. We know that there's an issue with the spacing between where the Waffle House driveway is and the Whataburger proposed driveway. And then also, GDOT has some requirements as far as distance from the intersection where their signal is on Lee Bird Road and 78.
Now, will your company be paying for the modifications to Old Zion Cemetery?
We are working through that with the city staff right now. Our
Okay.
client is willing to put forth some funds to help pay for that.
And then back here, should we change this zoning and you get that little corner there, you're looking for a 30-foot buffer, and I do appreciate you saving the trees. That's one of my passions. But one of my concerns is, because some of the other fast food restaurants in Loganville has a tremendous amount of foot traffic that goes out. You can see the little trails where people just walk out the back and they're going into that. And I understand, because I watched when you talked before, putting a fence up might not be an option because the trees would be in the way. But how can we work? Can we come up to the tree, go around the tree or somewhere? Because I don't really want foot traffic coming out of here and people just constantly going back and forth and creating footpaths through other people's yards to get to the burger
Right.
place.
We might be able to do an additional sidewalk along the buffer, along the front of the buffer, so that it wouldn't even make sense for them to cut through a yard. I mean, unless they live there, of course. Another thing we can do is possibly, if we can't work around the trees, I don't think they're going as deep as the 30 feet, we could move the fence forward.
Okay.
And do a smaller planting on the front side and taller trees on the back side to help with that buffer as well.
And we recently adopted a new stormwater, the detention pond ordinance that I'm sure you're very familiar with.
Yes.
So there's a lot of property that'll be here on the other side of your driveway. Would you consider making that, because some of these things are more like soccer fields or whatever that hold the water? I mean, are you open to doing something that more consists as a 24-hour-a-day thing that makes that more park-like versus detention?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's, we're still working on the vision for that, but that is kind of what we're looking at.
Okay.
We want it to be.
All right. Thank you. That was all the questions I had.
Thanks.
I just have a follow-up question, Amy. You said that you were looking to make Old Zion one way, but I think, do you mean between Lee Bird and 78, not the other end of Old Zion?
Right.
Okay, I just want
yes.
to confirm. Okay.
And still only a portion of it, because with that gas station there, as long as it is there, we need to have a small part of it still be two-way so people can leave the gas station onto Old Zion Cemetery Road to head back toward Lee Bird Road.
And what's the plan for the intersection at Old Zion and Lee Bird?
That is going to be potentially a three-way stop.
Okay.
And there, we're looking at, or the city is looking at adding a right turn lane there, a deceleration lane,
That'd be great.
and possibly additional. Well, we are working with the traffic consultant. They've done one phase for us already, just to see what the impact of putting the Whataburger there. But the next phase of that, once the rezoning gets approved, if it does get approved.
Think positive, right?
When it gets approved. We're going to be looking at the site as a whole and then working with the traffic consultants to help traffic flow around the entire area.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple questions, too.
Yes.
So, you showed the vegetative buffer, you know, there's options there that you're working on, but you initially, and then you talked about maybe a fence. Is there, I mean, when you started into this, were you thinking we could do a vegetative buffer and keep it all the way along there and not have a fence?
We realize there's some trees that would like to stay there. Typically, if there was nothing there, we could put up a wooden privacy fence along the property lines and then just plant trees and shrubbery in front of it. But with there being existing trees that should be saved, it's going to depend. Our plan is to provide a suitable buffer for the neighbors. We've got 30 feet planned for that buffer, and we're not quite sure what it's going to look like until we have our arborist in to look at the trees and working with our landscape architect to come up with something that's suitable and that's sustainable. We want it to be we want the trees to survive. So if we're afraid if we just go put fence up everywhere, that it could be detrimental to the health of the trees that are there that we want to save.
Yeah, thank you. That's what, kind of what I was asking, because I mean, how do you put a fence up to a tree and that type of thing? You know, what do you do with it? I want the best solution. I like the park feel. I like the openness. So
We're going to
I
let
just-
the experts help us with that.
Sure. One more question, I think. So, and I know this may be for Robbie, you're providing 39 parking spaces for Whataburger, which is more than we require, is that correct? So what's a normal, I mean, is that, you know, we just had a fast food restaurant close and they had like 25 spaces, and you know, you want to make sure you have enough to sustain it. Is that a reasonable number to sustain Whataburger?
We believe it is. They always like to have as much parking as possible, but.
Is it 39?
Right, it's 39.
Yeah, and it says their drive-through will accommodate 19 sitting vehicles, I believe. I mean, that's what it says. I mean,
Yes.
so that's what I was trying to look on this map. Does your drive-through wrap around the building like the Chick-fil-A? I mean, how does that?
Well, there are 2 lanes, so.
Oh, it's a 2-lane?
Yes.
And let me ask you this, I just now, this is just a thought that came to me, because one of the calls that I get a lot from citizens that live near fast food restaurants is the dumpster. Where in this picture is your dumpster?
It is, if you look at when oh, she's going to show you.
Well, I'm wondering, I don't know
It's
what
on
that
the-
is.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
No dumpster.
That's right there.
You had, right there, yes, that is the dumpster. And there's
Oh,
an
no, he's
outline
in-
for where the truck will come in.
Oh, okay, so it's right
We always
here.
try to leave clearance for that on the site
Okay,
plan.
and it's gonna be completely closed in with will
Absolutely.
it have a privacy fence, not just a chain link across the front and?
Yes.
Okay, I
Yeah,
get a
it'll
lot of
have a
calls on the
solid-
conditions of dumpsters around here.
Right. It is usually brick to match the building, and then with solid metal gates.
Okay.
or, Yes, doors, I guess. Thank you.
I got a couple of questions as well. Speaking to Melanie's point about people walking through, and I'm sure your landscape architect will do a great job with this, but instead of doing a fence, I do know a lot of times they use like some shade tolerant prickly bushes, and that keeps people from walking through because they don't want to
Very
get
smart.
hurt. So I've seen that a lot, so I just want to speak to that point real quick. So if the fence isn't an option,
Okay.
there are other options out there that deter people unless they really want to get some Band-Aids on them or something, you know? And this is just a conceptual, so this will change, obviously. And so this will be the only entrance into the other two that are coming in. So that's why there's a connector in between, or will they have their own entrances coming out as well?
It's going to depend on what the future businesses are and what type of access they will need. There's a lot of constraints to the site and where we can put the driveways. So we will work with city staff.
That's what I
and-
was worried about. GDOT might not be able to allow them to have one. So I just
Yeah,
wanted
right
to
now
ask
the
that question
plan
in case
is,
y'all already had a plan in place to say, yeah, you're not gonna be able to get one from DOT, so you're gonna
Right.
have to use ours to.
yeah, we're
come
looking
in.
at just possibly one on the 78 side. But then also, one of the concepts that we're looking at has another coming out onto Old Zion Cemetery Road to help line up with the gas station property, to kind of funnel that into one area instead of a free-for-all. And then we'd also been looking at possibly a second entrance on Lee Bird Road, but none of that is really set until they find the tenants or the businesses that are
Yeah.
gonna fill those other spots.
And-
But we will have interconnectivity within the site. There will be cross-access. We're also planning on a cross-access with Waffle House, just to make it so we can keep people off the highway in that area. It's just gonna be really hard for people to get in and out. And so hopefully it'll be all complimenting businesses and then,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
And I will say, I went and talked with the gas station owners the last few days, actually, and they're really excited about this because they're thinking this is going to keep a lot of people safer in their own parking lot instead of cutting through, because that's one of their biggest fears. And like Danny said, they're going to have that little piece where people can still get out to Lee Bird. Right there, that was their only concern, so that seems to be fixed. So now I know they're going to be really happy, so.
Good.
And for the council members that weren't here probably 5 years ago, the city tried to kind of do the same thing that y'all are wanting to do, and it just didn't work out. So I think this is really going to be beneficial for the city in the long run. I think even though nothing's going to fix traffic, it will help a little bit as far as being able to get onto 78 without having to go out to the light and turn on to 78, especially for the people that are turning
Right.
onto 78. It should be a help. Also, I heard you mention something about the buffer. You were talking also about putting in maybe like 4-foot mounds of dirt and then planting stuff on top of that. That would keep some of the foot traffic coming through that Melanie was talking about also, because they'd have a kind of a hill to climb to be able to get through there. So I think that would be a good thing too if, the fence doesn't
Yeah.
work out.
Great.
So Okay, so anybody else up here have any questions?
I have one question for Robbie. Looking at Lee Bird Road, and that's a city road, we will be okay giving them a decel lane coming down Lee Bird Road and turning to the right into their development. That should not be an issue. Good. Just want to get them off that road as quick as we can.
Are you talking about the diesel lane going into Old Zion Cemetery or
No.
into the back of their?
The back entrance that they're going to have beside of the buffer, if they could have a decel lane coming off and get them off of Lee Bird
There's
Road.
enough room.
Just not enough room.
It's gonna
There's not
depend
enough
on the
room.
right of way.
Yeah, on that side right there, there's not enough room.
Right.
So, it's just the one that's going on to Old Zion Cemetery.
So we can't have one there?
It would not without.
Yeah, there's not enough-
Within the scope of their property.
Yeah, there's not enough property for a decel lane there.
Not to buy more property,
Unless you've got more right of way.
buy another right of way.
Okay, so do we have any more questions from the council? If not, this time, we'll open it up to the floor. For anyone that is for this, if you would get up and go to the microphone and state your name and where you live.
Hey Chuck, when you get over there, repeat that if you would.
It's for you too.
We want everybody to be able to hear.
Sheba.
Leanne
This is my
Vaughn.
wife Leanne, so.
We own the property that is up against one of these easements here. The only issue I have, I mean, I like this, I like what you're talking about with the berm, the buffers. Why does this driveway have to be right next to two houses when we've got all this open property that could be used for the driveway to get in and out of this? Now and it's open 24/7. So we're gonna have cars coming down that road next to two homes 24/7 instead of having them come in from another direction on this big open piece of land here.
I suspect that open spot of land is where your detention pond's going to be, is that correct? Any consideration you might to move the detention pond and bring the road around to the other side of it? Just a thought.
Right, the reason we pushed it is that city staff had mentioned that they would like the driveway as far away from the intersection as possible,
Okay?
and so to oblige, we pushed it as far away as possible.
Well, that makes
But yes,
sense, but now it's up against two people's homes.
Understand, we can look at changing it. We'll work with city staff.
It certainly appears that they want to work with people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they
for
want to be
sure,
a good
for
community citizen.
We
I
appreciate
guess we just
that.
have to let them take a look at it and see where it goes from here.
Okay.
I see what you're saying, obviously.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This might be a question for Robbie then. I'm not meaning to take any of y'all's time, but it's going further back to help alleviate, obviously, the traffic from not just 78, but for the new Old Zion Cemetery, decel lane and stuff too, correct?
That and also we were looking at trying to line up with the other driveway that's across the street.
Across the
from it.
street from the business part,
In
so
the
they'd be
event
lined
that
up.
we can, in looking at traffic counts, place one of those X's, do not block.
So it'd help too.
I was gonna say,
To
yeah.
kind of try to help some of the traffic in that, get in and out of this parcel.
Because there won't be a turn lane, it'll be one way or other. There's no like center lane, so you can get over and go left or anything like that. So yeah, you are gonna have a bit of a block right there.
I believe it's safe to say that the traffic folks are doing the best they can to eliminate problems all along this area, with the biggest one being 8178. And of course, you still got Mount Zion too.
Yep.
What was that?
Why not have the entrance come in off Mount Zion?
I can look at it.
Yeah. There's got to be another solution than putting it right up against the only two houses that this is up against.
Amy, will you guys take a look at that and do the best you can? Is that fair?
Appreciate that, yes.
The reason it's
Thank-
not looking at, behind Old Zion Cemetery is because there's 3 utilities that are 2 feet deep. And it's gonna be an issue with moving those utilities. That's the reason. We looked at that and we're still talking about it, putting entrance behind the gas station, but at this time, we're still debating that.
Okay. I have
put
a
on-
question, sorry.
If you put underground detention in there, you could go anywhere you want to with the road, couldn't you? I know it costs money, I know. I understand. Expensive.
Question I had, what's the box right there? Since that's our property right behind, on the left there. What is that black box? I can't see. Yeah, what is that?
Dimensions.
Okay, so it's not a,
I think it's just dimension lines.
okay, just a title block, says green space, okay. And then I'm glad you guys talked about, people cutting through, obviously, people go through there to go to Waffle House and other things. It's not terrible, because we do have a chain link fence along the back of it there. But, the main reason they're coming is they're coming from the trailer park, and they're coming from the housing that's over there. They come right down Perry. So if you're gonna put a sidewalk along Lee Bird, could it potentially, I don't know if it's your responsibility or the city, but could it extend down to at least Perry, so that those people would just walk down? Because right now, they have to walk in front of the next house, they have to walk through their yard to get there. So, it's just, if you want to cut down people going through yards, you kind of got to give them a path to come down Perry and turn on a sidewalk, as opposed to just going through somebody's yard, no matter what, you're going through somebody's yard.
And I live right there off Zion Wood Road. Linda lives right there beside me, and Ann lives down the street as well. We are actually paving a section of Lee Bird, correct, Danny, this year coming up.
And that'll include.
Now, would that include any sidewalk? No.
I'd like you to consider it.
Okay. Yeah, I agree, because I see people walking.
Oh, yeah.
They walk it
All
all
the
the time,
time.
they just walk along the side of Lee,
Yes, and there's the
Lee
guy with
Bird.
the wheelchair that goes through there all the time too, holding up traffic.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I'm more, I guess I'm obvious about Perry, because they're all coming from the trailer park through.
Yeah.
And they try to cut in as wherever they can to cut through.
We have a lot of families that live in our neighborhood now that's kind of
Yeah.
turned over, and we have a lot of kids playing and stuff over there too, so.
But we stood up for the 4, so here we are. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anyone else that want to say anything for it? Anybody want to say anything against it? Okay,
All right, is anyone against it?
okay.
Okay,
But
see
this
it,
time,
none.
we will close the public hearing
Okay.
and vote on it on Thursday night.
Is that okay with you, Paul?
Wonderful.
Okay, and Mayor, that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you very much. And we'll move on now to Finance, Human Resource Committee, Ann Hunsinger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item I have is we need to officially appropriate funds for the library from the ARPA fund. That's more of a housekeeping item. As you know, the Loganville was awarded the grant from the state for the library, and the change in the ARPA laws allowed us to use those towards the library. So we need to officially designate some of our ARPA funds to the library.
Any questions?
Are you guys okay with that on consent? Do I need to do the amount, 1.5, right? So I'd like to, on consent, put that we'll designate 1.5 million of ARPA funds towards the library. Everybody okay with that?
Everybody okay? Sure.
Okay.
At the end, are you going to?
Yeah.
Yeah, when we get to the end, that'll be available to you, okay? Thanks.
And Mr. Mayor, I have one other thing that I was hoping that Jay would bring up. But I have talked to you, I've talked to Mr. Rosenthal, I've talked to Danny, I've talked to Chief, who he's coming right back. Okay, that's okay. We've had an incident in the last couple of weeks that everybody knows about. An apology's been offered, and we've accepted it. And it has opened up a potential loophole in our lack of ordinance in the disorderly conduct area. So I have been emailing back and forth with Chief about enforcement and how difficult it is, et cetera. So what I've asked, just for food for thought for us as a council, if we decide that we want to potentially add into the disorderly conduct ordinance rather than making a whole new section. But what I've asked Chief Lauer to do is just to do a quick 5-minute, 8-minute thing about what is enforceable, who has to see what, and what's allowed to be discussed in this. It's a misdemeanor, so that as our population grows, unfortunately, we have a homeless population right now, and our police officers don't have anything with which they can enforce. So with that being said, just a very quick 5 or 6 minutes for us to be thinking about as we move forward. So Chief, have at it.
Yes, ma'am. So, Mayor and Council, I think the issue that we're talking about here is under Georgia law, under the laws of arrest, when you're talking about a misdemeanor, it generally has to occur either one of two things: in the officer's presence or within the officer's immediate knowledge. Now, in the officer's presence is pretty simple. The police officer sees the offense occurring. That's fairly self-explanatory. In his immediate knowledge can be things as far as video, written statements provided to our officers, things like that. There are some exceptions also. For example, domestic violence is an exception to this. I think the easiest way to think about it is maybe like looking at a shoplifting call at Walmart. The officers don't see the shoplifter stealing the merchandise, but when we're called to Walmart, they're going to do things to make it part of our immediate knowledge, like showing us the videotape of them stealing, providing written statements, and then those loss prevention officers or anybody else who provides a written statement potentially will have to appear in court if it goes to trial and testify to those facts. So it's not simply as simple as the officer has to see them. That's not 100% true. It is, there has to be other things. We can't act necessarily. For example, if somebody calls and says, hey, I saw this car with tag number 12345 speeding, we can't write that person a citation for that, okay? There are a whole set of rules that we have to evaluate on each and every case, and every case is different. None are ever the same. But like you said, right now, is there an enforceable ordinance in the city? And the simple answer is no. Now, is it an ongoing problem that we have to address often? The answer to that is no as well. But it's up, within your purview as far as creation of the ordinances. Our role is the enforcement of the ordinances.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
So I just want us to think about adding some language into the disorderly as we move forward. Certainly put it on all your heads to sort of think about, and then maybe next month we can actually bring it back and put it under Jay when he's here, and then talk about it at that point. Everybody okay with that? Given that, Mr. Mayor, that's all I have.
Chief, just one question. Yes. In your experience, how enforceable is something if we did do something?
Say it one
How
more time.
enforceable for your department would be if we add some verbiage into the current law?
Well, I think it depends on the circumstances. Right. If it was an anonymous complaint and the officer arrives and doesn't see the described behavior, then it's probably not enforceable. If they arrive and see them do it, it's enforceable. If you had, Ring camera or if it was somebody's residence, Ring camera, or if you had business photographs or written statements from different people, things like that are credible witnesses, then it is enforceable.
Is there a possibility we would go into neighbors against neighbors? That's what I fear.
Is that a possibility? Sure, I think that's a possibility probably with any complaint.
True.
Quite honest.
Okay, if you don't mind, since I was the one involved in this, and I apologize, I have made a very detailed and accurate statement as to what happened at the post office. I have apologized to our citizens. I will no longer discuss this issue if anyone has questions for me. it's done, as far as I'm concerned. So with that said, is that it for your committee? Okay, all right. Then we'll move along to Public Safety Committee, Jay Boland, and in his place will be Chief Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor and council, back in January, we came before the council and you approved the purchase of 3 Ford Police Pursuit utility vehicles, more commonly known as the Ford Explorers. We placed that order with our state contract vendor, and to make a very long and complicated story very short, the guy that we had been dealing with for some time at Wade Ford, it was their government sales manager, clearly left Wade Ford under less than ideal circumstances because he chose to completely wipe his Wade Ford computer before he left, which included all pending orders, all orders that had been received, all purchase orders that had been received, so on, so on, so on. So the position that they were in, basically, they had cars that came in, and they didn't know who they went to. So they waited until circumstances like ours, when I asked Greg, hey, have you heard anything on our cars? And he called them, and at that point now they knew what they needed from us to show that we did order 3 cars. Well, because of that, some of the cars that were ordered were not exactly what the orders that were placed by the agencies. They did have 3 cars on the lot. It started out quite a bit different because of some of the options that quite honestly we just don't require and don't need. They removed as many of those as they could, and Greg did some really good negotiating and got them down to a $3,500 difference between the original order and the cars that were available on the lot. So what we are asking for is an amendment to what you approved back in January, which was a total of $115,503, or correction, I'm sorry, $142,225.53, which is vehicles, all the associated emergency equipment, lettering, and so on, to bring that up with the addition of the 3,500 to 145,725.53. And we do have money available in the budget to cover that difference.
Okay, in Jay's absence, does anybody have a desire to put it on the consent agenda, or do you want for him? Everybody okay? To be honest, just for those of you that's not in the government area, we've waited for vehicles so long. $3,500 to get them now seems a pretty darn good deal.
Yes.
We've got 2 fire trucks waiting, $960,000 or so, and they're saying 18 months to 2 years because they can't get all the components. And the cars are not that long, but it's a good wait.
Yes.
So if everybody's okay with consent agenda,
Yeah.
everybody okay?
Yep.
Okay, it'll be on the consent agenda for Thursday.
Thank you,
Thank you. Okay, we'll move now to Public Utilities Transportation Committee, Bill Duvall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have one item on the agenda tonight. That's the appropriate funds for the Claude Brewer water line. This is from ARPA. This is a transfer to cover the cost of the project. What's the final total we need to do on that?
Well, you've already approved the amount, the
Yeah.
bid amount. But there's some legal stuff that
That's true.
may become potential, so I'll just keep that open for now. But
That's true.
we just like to take it from the enterprise fund payment and use it from the ARPA. We just need this as a housekeeping item, gives us, me and Natalie, the authority to change from one fund to the other in case the auditors pull this and want to see the minutes where it was proved to pay from ARPA funds.
And we can put that on consent, right? Yes. So any questions on that?
Okay, consent? Everybody? Okay,
Yes, sir.
consent.
And that's all I have.
Well, we might tell everybody too, just for info, there's some discussion in our government in Washington DC that communities that hasn't designated these funds, the federal government may claw back that money. And we sure don't want to get caught in that position because we've got plans that require that money. So that's the reason we're making these little bit of changes. Okay? Okay, we'll go to Public Works Facilities Committee. Melanie Long.
Thank you. I have nothing tonight. I'll have my monthly report at Thursday's meeting. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move to Economic Development Committee report. Brandon Whitfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no items tonight. I will talk more about our upcoming events because we have a lot of them. But I do want to mention the carnival that I've been helping set up today already for the carnival. And it will be here May 11th through 14th. I want to let everybody know now because it's coming up the quickest. Yep, Thursday night. So there you go. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
And our citizens love that carnival. Does a great job. Okay, we'll move down to City Manager's report. Danny Roberts.
I have nothing, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move to City Attorney updates and reports. Paul Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I will be brief. You've already heard from me way too much tonight for my own taste. But I did want to introduce you to Donnie Wright, who's here with me tonight. He's an associate that practices in my office. I wanted you to know him because he's always available to talk to you guys anytime you need to, call, email. But more importantly, I wanted you to meet him because he's going to be standing in for me next month. I had a vacation already planned when I got the call to come on board here, and I'd scheduled it around Monroe's schedule, and y'all snuck in and got me. So on June the 5th and June the 8th, I won't be here, but Mr. Wright will be standing in my stead, and you'll be in good shoes. And whenever folks come and stand in for me, my general rule is just don't let anything burn down. We can always figure it out the next month.
Do our best
So
every time.
if he defers to July, please give him a little grace to push it off to July. Lastly, just something that will be coming to you while I'm gone. It's just a cleanup to comply with House Bill 1405. You'll see an ordinance change coming before your planning and zoning on May the 25th, and then it will be before you for June 5th, June 8th consideration. All that is a change in a few technical terms of your zoning ordinance to comply with ZPL. Y'all don't have any real inferior boards that sort of the majority of that new law change that went into effect last year relates to. So the short answer is there's some changes coming through in your zoning ordinance, but the reality of them is they're real technical cleanups that don't have any actual effect, if you will, other than just to do some cleanup. I'll be happy to answer any questions when you see them come through the pipeline. If you have any questions, Donnie can answer them for you too. He helped me draft the ordinance, but that will be coming down the pipeline for your consideration next month.
Paul, I know the question on everybody's mind is where are we going on vacation?
I will be heading across the drink for the first time in my life to take my family to England.
Very good. Very good.
Mayor, I do have something I just remembered.
Okay.
Council actually brought this to my attention. They were asked from a business owner to allow takeout restaurants to serve alcohol, which in our ordinance, you have to have a sit-down facility to be able to serve alcohol. So is that something the council would like Paul and I to work on? I just need some direction from the council.
Is it in the downtown district?
No, this will be citywide, but it could affect downtown if a restaurant pops up that mainly does outdoor seating and that doesn't have a formal dining room, it would affect them.
Okay.
So it don't have to be a vote on it. If y'all just want to text me for y'all, say go for, then we'll start working on it.
So do they have little bags like for wine and stuff, or is it like alcohol by the drink to go? I mean,
No, this is just for what we call walk-up service restaurants. So there's still a confined area in which food service and alcohol service occurs. So they still have to do the alcohol service within the four corners. So essentially, it comes from the West Coast. You have your food truck parks in Portland, very popular. And so you'll have a food truck park, and then in a centralized area of that food truck park, that's where food and alcohol is allowed. It's my understanding there's a walk-up restaurant that's either opening or has opened here in the city, and the way your ordinance currently reads, they cannot serve alcohol because they don't have any interior seats. And so if you want to allow exterior seated, what we call walk-up restaurants, it'd just be an ordinance change. It would not allow, your ordinance is similar to Monroe's currently, where it allows some downtown carry cups just within the downtown district. But it prohibits open carry outside of those provisions. This would not affect that in any way. It's just an outdoor restaurant, essentially. It's currently not
I'd be
allowed.
okay with looking at that.
I guess my concern too, my concern is, I mean, we've struggled with alcohol changes over time, and every time we do one thing, it's kind of like we push back into all that. And you know, I think where we are with the Main Street district is good. I would be concerned if we're trying to do something outside. So just kind of what my thoughts are.
Okay, does the majority of the council want them to put something together, or? Okay. Well, can we put something together and put it on June's agenda?
Would we have a potential cost for doing that? Would we have a potential cost in agreeing to this? Estimated amount, because I want to have $10,000 in something that we're not gonna like.
It won't be that, but I can't give you a cost, because I mean, I gotta dig into your alcohol ordinance. It's just gonna be my standard hourly billable.
You know, anytime you deal with alcohol, it opens
what I'm
another
afraid
door
of.
that we
If
have to
we
make sure we're.
start it, I don't-
Yes.
Anytime you deal with attorneys, or anytime you deal with alcohol, or, no, but, yeah, don't go there.
Okay, so we can put that on the work session?
Well, we might need to move it to July if you're not here.
I mean, if you want us to draft something, we can have it ready. I would probably suggest, so that we can have some time to talk with staff, because I know Monroe's ordinance pretty in and out, because we rewrote it a few years ago, and we're struggling with an update right now, as a matter of fact. But I'd like to get up to speed, so if you don't mind, wait till July, if that's acceptable. We
I'm
can
okay
dig
with that.
into it, and we can talk to
Okay
staff a
with
little bit more, figure out how much work it's gonna take also.
Well, that's perfect.
So does Monroe have this outside of this downtown district?
We do. I mean, the law of unintended consequences is exactly right, as you know, Councilmember. But for whatever reason on alcohol, it is probably the hardest one on the law of unintended consequences. You fix 2 or 3 problems and it opens up 2 or 3 more. So it is very much, we hear the Constitution being a living, breathing document, your alcohol ordinance, it needs constant attention, because you fix one thing and you create another problem.
We've been there.
You know, good and bad.
But in Bill's statement, keeping it in a downtown district, is that, in your opinion, easier to maintain than the whole city? Are we going to have to do it anyways if we got to do it?
You don't
for the
have to, you
downtown?
certainly can define areas where you allow certain things and you don't, if they're reasonably and rationally related to what you're doing. I would dig into that with law enforcement. I would talk to your police department about that. And, you know, usually you see that these sort of, you know, we call them stumble cups. These sort of open carry cup districts are usually centered around a downtown area. That doesn't necessarily always relate to the open restaurant concept. If you go to Athens, Clark County, they have open restaurant concepts sort of around. They usually pop up in areas like a gas station, old retrofitted gas station with a food truck out. There's no room to sit inside. The inside becomes the kitchen and the restrooms, and then the outside is the restaurant area or the seating area. And so it's really just more of an issue of your definition of a restaurant just doesn't permit an open-air restaurant to serve alcohol at this point. So I would encourage you to just to process it this way. While the open container, open carry thing is another area of alcohol ordinances to discuss, and right now y'all do have it allowed in Rock Gym and right around downtown, this is just more of a, do we want the definition of a restaurant to be one that doesn't have traditional indoor seating? And if you're okay with that, then it's not that big of a move, I would say, from where you already allow alcohol to be served at indoor restaurants.
Could it be like special permit, or it has to be
It certainly can,
countywide?
it certainly
They would have to
can be by
apply
special
for it.
permit, but my understanding is the focus here is changing the definition of the restaurant structure to allow it at some open-air restaurants that are either open or looking to be open in the area.
They would have to have all the licenses, of course.
Correct.
And real quick, just another thing that was brought up after we talked is all the patios currently for current restaurants, they don't pay for those seats in the patios. But if we open it up to seats outside, then we're gonna have to potentially go back to these restaurants and charge more per seat, because we do have a per seat charge.
Yes, we do.
But we don't include the patio. But if we go to this, since they have no dining, then we're gonna have to charge them patio, and it may affect the current businesses. So it's just, we'll look at that and bring all the pros and cons. before
It's a
you-
good time, because it's getting to be more and more outside patio seating, so that's a good time. Okay, can we have a motion to adjourn this meeting? We have a motion, we have a second?
Second. We're about to open it up for public
Okay,
comment.
that's coming. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the work session is now adjourned. And now we move into the public comment. And I guess if we see hands, we will give you the floor. Okay? Yes, ma'am?
My name is Kathy Swanson. I live on Lee Bird Road. I just have a couple of questions, Ann, about the appropriate funds for the library. Is this money, I know that basically, didn't we get a grant from the state for 1.5 million, and we agreed to give them 1.5 million out of our infrastructure fund?
No, that's not quite right. So the state awarded four.
Okay.
Three, sorry. The state awarded 3 million from the grant. We got funds from ARPA, which is not infrastructure money, it's ARPA money as a result of COVID, and we are designating 1.5 million of those funds to the library.
Okay, my next question, okay, thank you.
And the county did 1.2 million.
Correct.
Okay, I was just questioning, I feel like we're rushing this library thing, and I know it's coming, it's a given. Why would we give them money when we do not know where this library is going, how big it's going to be, what the final budget is? Is there a finance committee for the library? Is anybody saying, okay, we're going to give you $1.5 million, what are you doing with it?
So here,
Who's handling this?
So briefly, just to let you know, because there's a lot of fear that the library could go over budget, we have no control of the money, and, you know, all of a sudden the city's on the hook for 7 million, not one. So here's how it works. We have committed, the state has committed, and the county has committed to X number of dollars for each one, 3.5, 1.2, and us is 1.5. The library must turn in invoices to receive their money. They have to do the budget, and if they come up short, then they either have to change the plan or find the money.
So this is a library committee through the county?
It's the library's responsible. It's not the county, the library itself.
Through the
They will-
library system.
Through the library system. They are going to do a capital campaign, just like the YMCA has done to raise money, and it's on them how that money is spent. We will get appropriation of it because they're spending our money, they're spending the city money, the county money, but they are responsible. We are not the bank. We have committed 1.5 as the city, and that's the end of it.
Okay. Okay, that was it.
Does that answer?
That does, yeah, that
Okay,
answers it.
perfect.
Thanks.
And just for info, part of the process was because we committed to a 15,000 square foot facility at a certain amount of dollars. And right now, the library board and their staff and their committees they put together are committed to raising $2 million to go with that to finish it out. But that doesn't mean we can't get it started.
You know, I think my biggest fear is, didn't we agree that we were going to give them 1.2 million out of our infrastructures fund?
No. That's
Any
ARPA.
money out of the infrastructure
No,
fund?
it's ARPA. It's money straight from the
Okay,
government.
okay.
But, and Skip, just to be very clear, we didn't commit to giving them a 15,000 square foot building. We committed to giving them $1.5 million.
That's right.
Dana, do you have anything, I mean, I know, am I okay? Anything you want to add to that? Okay. So,
The
yeah.
plan
it's-
is 15,000 square foot, is it not,
Right.
Dana? And the requested size was 24,000 square
Correct.
feet, and we just can't do that now.
Right.
So,
But there's some concern too that like we sucked money out of infrastructure and we're going to pay for the library and let our roads go to
I
pot.
just remember hearing that from a previous
There's a lot of stuff-
council meeting.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of misinformation going about that. This is strictly ARPA money as part of COVID from the government that we got in a grant. I mean, it's going, and we were allowed, we would not have been allowed, they changed it, what, like 23 months ago? Where they
changes
added
every month.
Yeah, that's true, but they changed it where a library counted as facilities, and
So-
that's when we were like, okay, we can swing that cash.
If I can clarify where the infrastructure came from, it started out for, you can use it for several things. Infrastructure was one that we first chose, but then the IRS or the federal government said, you know what? We're going to do what's called a government services, which covers a broad thing. And they said, well, if you choose government services and you made, or we gave you less than $10 million, you only have to report one time on government services. We did that last year. Since then, that rule has changed now where you have to report every year. So we have till 2026 to spend this money.
Right.
So that's why we're appropriating it now. So to answer your other question, all of what you asked originally will be addressed in the intergovernmental agreement that the council will do with the library board when they get to that point. That will spell out exactly what the city does and does not do.
Got it.
So,
Makes
just to
sense.
clarify.
Yeah, that answers it.
Perfect, thanks Kathy.
Good question. Good question. Anyone else? Okay, come on up, Greg.
Hey, good afternoon. Y'all know, most of y'all know me. Greg Peoples, I live at 930 Edgewater Drive. And you took a little of my thunder earlier. I appreciate you addressing that ordinance thing. And I agree that, you know, obviously I'm pretty active on social media and I've been in the community for a long time and it was a complete embarrassment. I sent an email to council. I got a response from Ann, Melanie, Jay, and as usual, I got no response from Linda, Brandon, and Bill, which I expected that. I just think that there needs to be an ordinance. I think the law enforcement in this city, they do an excellent job of what they can. And just once again, it's a complete embarrassment. And since council won't step up to the plate, nobody has a backbone to do anything, I think that you should be publicly admonished, Skip, for your behavior. That's all I have to say. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you, Ann.
Well, Greg, I'm going to say this real quick. Appreciate your input. The council will do what they need to do, and we'll go from there. Okay, anyone else? You want me to give you a minute to listen? You need to go to the restroom? Well.